be something that needs a little fixing on Far Point Farms.
Guys, it's Eric, owner of Far Point Farms here in the mountains of North Carolina. Today, well, we'll be doing some more routine maintenance. This is a 2001 Volvo V70 XC. We're going to be doing a rear wheel hub assembly. So if you get that roaring noise as you're going down the road, left or right, front or rear, this happens to be passenger rear, that's what you're going to have here. So this covers 2001 through I think 2007 models. They should all be about the same. Anyway, it's not that complex a job. Of course, rust will be an issue on this one since it's got many years in the snow belt. The first step, of course, is go ahead and pull off your wheel. Then we'll take off some of the brake stuff, and then from there, well, it's just a matter of squeezing in there and getting to those back bolts. Here's a picture of what the wheel hub assembly looks like. Not much to it, just 4 bolts that hold it on. So let's get started. You don't need a whole lot of tools, and you really don't need air tools. Obviously, air tools make the job easier. I'll try to name off the tools as I use it. This is a 19 to take your wheel off. Once we get that down, we'll get that out of the way. And now we've exposed our brakes. There are 2 trains of thought here. You have a 10mm bolt that's going to have to come off in order to get the rotor off. Now, you can take the brakes apart. You can take the 2, I think they're 7mm bolts here, and or hex head bolts, and you can take the caliper off like you were going to do a brake job. If you want to skip that, there is a cheat here that I'm good at doing. Just go ahead and take the, I think they're 13s. There should be 2 13s. That's the whole caliper bracket. Bolts that holds the whole thing on. You're going to take that, you're going to compress the caliper slightly just using hand power, and you're going to lift it off and we'll hang that. So let me go ahead and get a ratcheting 13 in there and we'll take care of that. I got some pictures. Here's a picture of one of the bolts anyway. Very difficult to get a picture of those 2 bolts. There's so much crap in the way. And once I pull this caliper off, I'll show you the back side of the bracket so you know which ones to take off as opposed to which ones not to take off. Okay, so I've got those 2 13s out of the way. I'm just going to set those down here. I'm going to compress this just by applying pressure. By pulling on it, I'm pushing against this and pulling on this. I've compressed the puck slightly, and I've given myself enough room to slide this on and off. So, see? Okay, as far as the bolts you're taking loose, you don't take those out. You're just taking this one and this one. And I'll take a close-up picture of that and show it to you right here. Away. I'm going to tuck that in out of the way, and I've got 1 10mm here, and then you'll probably have to give this 1 or more good-sized love taps with a hammer in order to pop it loose. It tends to seize to the front of the hub face. So 10mm here, and then you're ready to pop that off. Sometimes you get lucky. This one apparently is not rusted on there, so it started moving the second I loosened up this bolt or nut there, bolt here. So that's just going to slide right out of the way, and that is awesome. That is good news. So I'm going to lay that down. But again, if you had to break it loose from this, you would just want to hit that a few times on the hub face, and that would help release that. I'll just set that out of the way, put that down. And our next step here, we have a 14. Okay, once we've got that out, we've exposed our CV axle. If you're lucky, yeah, you can push in, and the shaft will push inward. That gives you a little extra clearance there, and you can work on those actual bolts. Now, I'm going to, again, take a still here, and you can see there's 4 bolts that hold this thing in. You should not have to mess with your emergency brakes, which is awesome because they're kind of a pain. But we'll go ahead and see if we can get that loose. Now, these are not easy to get to. They do have a little better clearance. If we push our axle in a little bit, it pushes that face of the axle CV shaft back and gives us a little more room to work. Again, I'm going to be using a ratcheting wrench on this. This should be fairly tight, so it might take a little extra effort. If there's any rust on the face of the threads to stick through, yeah, it'll be even more fun. So here's a couple of close-ups as best as I can get, and we'll go from there. So again, I'm using a ratcheting wrench. This is a flex head, but it doesn't have to be. As long as it's got the 15-degree offset, it will work just fine. I'm going to go ahead and remove those. They are 17s, in case I haven't mentioned that 100 times already. Let me mention it one more. And these are going to be tight, so you may have to use a hammer or an adapter there to break it loose. I'm going to grab a hammer. There we go. The back side, I leave it on that, but I've got those pictures, and hopefully you can reference those. Memory serves, this one here is the hardest one to get to. There you go, 17s. You're going to reuse those. Sometimes the kits will come with new ones. Sometimes they don't. I bought a fairly inexpensive one, so no kit. It looks like for that top one I can use an extension swivel, 17mm swivel on an extension, so I'll go ahead and remove that one. And that last one's going to be a bear. Alright, so this last bolt here, this one's tough. I was able to use a regular impact swivel on this top one, and if I had my 3/8 impact swivel, I probably could get that with this. I don't, so I'm using non-impact swivel. Totally not recommended, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Here's a picture of how I got up in there, and let's see what happens. And that's it. She's loose. Feel like I got maybe 1 or 2 threads left to go here. Yeah, but it's coming. Alright, so finish backing that one out. Okay, now let me get our stuff out of the way. What's sticking here, this is loose. All 4 of these bolts are out. But what's sticking is, again, it's rusted. So you're going to have to tap on this until she breaks loose. In fact, I'll get my sledgehammer. It'll make short work of it. Right, unfortunately, I don't know if the camera caught that. We'll find out in editing. But it did require quite a bit of hammering to break that loose. And you can kind of see the rust color here. Well, that's just that hub face rusted on there. Now you do want to be mindful, again I'm going to go over this in case it didn't record the first time, of which way this thing comes out, because you see here these bolts are offset, so or the holes are, so slide it back in the same way. I've got a little bit of grease down in there on those threads in case I ever need to take this thing apart again. Hopefully that is not going to happen. We'll go ahead and slide that in. Get that started. I'm going to make sure that my splines are started. Looks like we're good there. And well, I'll go ahead and start those bolts back in. Now you don't want to tighten any one of them all the way, or it'll make the rest of them extremely hard to get into place. We're just going to get them started here. In fact, you can even start that one just loosely if you're worried about the whole hub face falling off while you're messing around. Get them all started, and then the process is pretty much the same as taking it apart, but in reverse. We're going to tighten all those back up. Alright, once our 4 bolts are back in here, we're going to go ahead and put our center bolt all the way back in. There's a 13, I believe it was. 14 maybe. Yeah, 14. It's time to reattach our rotor. Mine got full of rust there as I was beating on stuff. But clean that up, put that back on, center it up, put our 10mm bolt back in this. You're hearing that crunching sound, you want to push back. So a lot of times when you're beating on this, you'll damage or bend that shield a little bit. I'm going to get that out of there. There we go. Good. Then if everything went as planned, you should still have your slack. You can slide your brakes back over that, right? No need to take the tire braking system back apart. We've got our 2 13mm. Slide those back in there and tighten those down. And boys and girls, that is it. I'm Eric, owner of Farpoint Farms. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you got some use out of this. You know, the book on this says it takes about an hour and a half. I got about 30 minutes in it, maybe 40 at most. So really with just, you know, I'm using air tools so I can nail it in with air tools. If you're not using air tools, it might take you another half hour just to, you know, strong arm those parts out of there. And if you're not in a rusty area, well then this job's going to be a whole lot easier. Again, if you also don't have an all-wheel drive model, this job's going to be a lot easier. You won't have the CV joint in the way and all that stuff. So hope you got some use out of this. If you have any questions, I was a Volvo mechanic for like 25 years, so I know pretty much most of what there is to know about Volvos from, say, 1975 all the way through to 2013. So drop me a comment and I'll see if I can help you out. Anyway, until then, I'll see you next time. Take care.